a little bit louder, didn't it? Hello, welcome to the show. Today is February 7th, 2016. This is Mistress of Reads. It's an audio podcast where we read fantasy, urban fantasy, paranormal, smutty books, erotica, sometimes even an economical book, like about, like how to save money book, we read everything under the sun, just what particularly hits our fancy. So thank you so much for showing up. Yay! And welcome to the show. I am Mistress OP or Miss O or whatever. I answer to pretty much anything. And let's go ahead and get started in on the show today. So we have for this week in our Bookie Nerdie News, nerdy Bookie News. We gotta come up with the name of this second segment. We have to start off today. Me Before You is coming out pretty soon. It has a date. It's been made. It has a trailer. The trailer looks really good. I'm really, really excited about it. I'm actually stupid excited about it to the point where I called somebody. Oh, I called up a friend at like 3 o'clock in the morning when I saw the trailer. I'm like, oh my God. Because we read this book in our book club like in 2012. And when I got the book initially, I didn't realize the book was about what it was about because I just read it because it was on the list of things to read. And it was that book this week. And I didn't read the actual intro. So basically, this book wrecked me. So I'm going to go ahead and in the cutout version of this, I'm going to play the trailer and it'll play for about 5 to 10 minutes. So I'll go ahead and play it for the cutout version. But what you're going to see in the trailer is everything you wanted to see: a kind of kooky zany girl, a hot guy in a wheelchair. Yes, I said it. A hot guy in a wheelchair. And most importantly, I don't know, that little something magical that the book had. So check, check, double check, you know, kooky girl, check, English countryside, check, hot guy in a wheelchair, chair, check, 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 it's really, everything that I could have wanted from this book turned into a movie. And let me just see who's in it. So it's starring Sam Claflin. I said his name incorrectly from the from the Hunger Games, as well as Will Traynor. He stars as Will Traynor, dude in a wheelchair. Um, Emma Clarke from Game of Thrones as Louisa Clarke. So awesome. All right, here's our next news item. So there's an app out there that sort of turns your erotica books or any type of romance book into a real sort of talking to you actual dude. I'm not sure about this. It's it's like when I originally read the post from Huffington Post. This one's from Huffington Post. Um, I was like, I didn't know whether or not to be creeped out because I don't know if I want somebody to creep up on me while I was reading my dirty book and be like calling me out. And what it does, it sort of sends texts and gifts and notifications, a bit like Wattpad does now. But it's more real looking. So you get like a little bubble that pops up. You know how when somebody sends you a message, and and I mean, what if you're in that one part where you're like, she puts his hand on the balls, and I'm like, oh no! He sends you like a little text message, like, oh no! I'm just like, oh. So when oh no, I just freaked out. Something about it just freaked me out, and I'd want to use this at least once, but I'm not sure if I want to use this like every day because it's like, ooh, ew, it's just, ew. I'm just, I'm not okay with it. I'm just not okay. Not okay. I am not okay with this idea. I'm just, and then there's times where I'm like okay with this idea of the whole, oh, while you're reading a dirty book, here comes this, dude talking to you at the same time, you know. And the first romance novel that they want to, one of the romance novels they want to do is like Colleen Hoover, um, prolific writer. She writes really fast, actually. Um, just I think it's a good idea. It's just maybe because reading the smutty books that I'd probably use this on is more of a private affair for me, and it takes the mystery out of it. I've got so many levels of oh okay, and then so many levels of ugh, on this thing that I don't know what to do with it. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next story instead of dwelling on this one. So did you hear that adult coloring books are really just a thing? I didn't know adult coloring books were a thing. They're a thing. You take a sip of this hot toddy here. So, adult coloring books, I guess that kind of makes sense because coloring is fun. I draw a lot and I enjoy drawing, but I kind of enjoy coloring more than drawing itself because I like when it pops up from the page and I like shading and stuff. I even like black and white stuff. So I could see how adult coloring books could sort of take off. But of course, because we can't have nice things without sort of putting balls on it or boobs. Um, there is also not safe for work coloring books, and they are really truly how you imagine them. Yeah, yeah, that is balls. Yeah, that is balls. So, so as well as orgies, coloring book orgies. I I don't know what to make of it, but I'm just gonna. It's just one big blur, one big censored blur right now, just like blurred. Okay, all right. What we got next? Okay, so Emma Watson is starting a feminist book club. And isn't that kind of like a real life Hermione moment? I mean, just like I was like, oh my god, she really is Hermione. It's like if I was to imagine what the real Hermione would do in real life, this would be it. And then I just wanted to hug her because I was like, oh, isn't that cute? So I've got a couple book recommendations for her. Mr. Fox, because it is magical, fairy tale sort of. I don't know. I just really enjoyed the magicness of the book. And then I would also recommend for her Disgruntled. Um, I guess a lot of people would skip over that book, and it's kind of newer-ish in the classicals. And I guess I would recommend that book because it's a coming of age and it has a lot of things going on with it. And I figured she's gonna have like 20 books in her book series, so pick my three because they're awesome. And then I would also pick for her I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings because you just have to get through it. And there's moments of uplift, and it's about dealing with things, and it's about finding the strength from within. And there's a lot going on in my Angelou's book, and I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings was a book I accidentally picked up when I was I think I was a sophomore and junior in high school, and I have dyslexia and I have trouble reading, so I went to the reading shelf and I picked up the book and I started reading it, and I remember thinking, "Oh my god, this is an awesome book." And it wasn't awesome because it was awesome. It wasn't awesome for for like the little reasons it was awesome because it just is an awesome book. It's compelling. It's completely compelling. So Emma Watson's book club. I want to join. because I love reading books, and otherwise I wouldn't be doing a really nerdy podcast about books now, wouldn't I? So awesome, good job. Next item. So 50 Shades cast. So the 50 Shades Darker cast is currently growing, and this is out of Pop Sugar, and they've gotten a lot of this article is from Pop Sugar, and they've got a lot of casting items here and people that I wouldn't expect. So we have coming back, we have Jamie Dornan as Christian Grey. I'm I've never been really happy about Jamie Dornan as Christian Grey. I know it's not allowed to say that out loud anymore, but he the problem with Jamie is that when he shaves, he's not as hot. And when he lets his beard get too long, he's also not as hot. He just looks scruffy. And there was this like middle point where Jamie is actually kind of darkly, handsomey, dangerousy instead of sort of cutie Twinkie. So the problem is when he shaves, he gets this sort of twink look to him, and it's not as dangerous, and it's not what you would think of for Jamie. It's not what you would think of for Christian Grey, because there's something insidious about Christian Grey. It's something dark, and if you remember the story, I think Kate, her best friend, said there's something about him, and when I look at there's something dark about him, and when I look at Jamie Dornan, I said his name incorrectly. I don't actually get that. I get, when he shaves, I more get that. Oh, grandma. I want to plug his cheek there. I want to kiss his cheek and give him a hug and pat his back and possibly cook him a dinner or something. I don't get the tie me up and do me from him. I just don't. Okay, coming back again as Anastasia Steele, Dakota Johnson. I actually believed in her cast. I mean, she looks weirdly like a hotter version of the author, but but um, but what I really liked about her is she actually worked for it. She's not too hot. She's she's like Girl Next Door meets a lot of different things. I actually really like Dakota Johnson's cast in that. I just wish in the series that she wasn't the one that was always freaking naked. It got to a point where it was like, maybe put some clothes on her. Yeah. A little lingerie or something. I don't know. It just got too repetitive because in contrast, Jamie was never naked. So I mean it stood out, especially in the moments where it wasn't her Jamie being, in the hot when it wasn't Christian Grey in the hot jeans, it just didn't work anymore. Okay, Bella Bella Heathcote. I didn't even say her name right. As Alita Williams. Okay, I have nothing against that. I just um I she the problem with Leah here. The problem with Lita, her as Lita, is she doesn't have that I don't know. I think if they color her hair, she doesn't have that because all of Christian Grey's girls sort of look like. Okay, I'm giving the book away, so fuck. We're on darker. All of Christian Grey's girls look like his mother, who sort of looked like a strung out girl, a strung out brown hair mousy girl. Um, So the problem is, I think that the chick that they cast for Lita might be just a little too hot. So just a little too hot. Even if you brown out her hair, I think she might be just a little too hot. But that's important. That's an important messed up portion of the book. So I hope that they don't mess it up like they did in the first one, where you feel like you're watching a 50 Shades highlight reel instead of actually watching a fully fledged movie. Because if you watch the first 50 Shades movie, if you didn't already know the plot, it's actually not as understandable a movie, which isn't a good thing to think. Okay, so Kim Basinger, Kim Basinger, Kim Basinger as Helena Lincoln. Okay, so she's gonna play. Uh, you know, I can totally see her as Mrs. Robinson. Like I could totally see it happening as Mrs. Robinson because she kind of has that sort of hot, fiercey, look to her. Even in, I think she's like 50. Let me look it up really quick. I believe she's like in her 50s, possibly 50s, late 50s, early 60s. Oh, she aged well. Kim Basinger don't crack. Okay, you go, girl. Um, and she's playing in that. If you don't remember who Mrs. Robinson was, Kristen's ex-lover and his business partner and his female pedophile chick. I mean, she's just a dubious character in the series. It's just really just. All right, and so we have Max Martinez as Taylor. I actually liked him as Taylor because he has that sort of bulky look to him. He sort of looks like a security guard, and I think he's played security guard or cop in that sort of other series. I've seen him in before, so I think he actually works as Christian Grey's bodyguard. And Taylor is actually one of my favorite characters in the whole entire series. Yes, I like the bodyguard. Um, yeah, because there was something about Taylor. I remember when they were having the scene in the car, and she asked him if he was a good guy, and Taylor replies, that he is, and you normally get, oh, he was paid to say that, but there was something about Taylor that even if he wasn't paid to say it, he'd still say it. So that's what I like about Taylor. So Eloise Mumford as Kate. I think she worked as Kate. One of the failings of the series is how Kate wasn't effectively used as well as she could have been used in the series. Christian and Anastasia Steele's relationship was very bubble. And I think if you've ever read I think it's called Come Fly With Me or Up in the Air. Let me look it up. The Up in the Air series. I'll look it up really quick. Up in the Air series by R.K. Laley. I can't remember the name, but it's like the Up in the Air series and book one. I think it's actually a more effective use of a friend. You get a lot of these book series, and what they do is they have these bubble relationships, and they're great and everything, and they're fun to read. But if you're always reading in these bubble relationships, it's not as much fun as reading how the friendships interacts with the relationship, which interacts with the way the world treats them, which interacts. A little less bubble, a little more, a little more world. And I don't know, I really enjoy it. I think that RK does an actual better job of writing friendships into books and into the bubble than the 50 Shades author did, which is E.L. James. And she's not as big as E.L. James, even though she should be, because she wrote an awesome book. And she still writes awesome ebooks. She's a prolific writer, and I hope the best for her. So let's keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. So Luke Grimes as Elliot. I didn't like Luke Grimes as Elliot because he didn't look like the older brother. He looked like the younger brother, even though Jamie Dorman just looks like a kid anyways. So there's a problem with that casting. I would have rather they gone with a little bit more of a grimier dude to make it look like an older brother. Just that's the way I imagined him when I read the book. Victor Roski as Jose Rodriguez. I can see it. I actually think he's a really cute guy. Good at Jose. I liked him. And he's playing Mia, and that's his friend. And then Rita Ora as Mia. She weirdly enough made a really good Mia, and I was not expecting that from Mia Ora Kumar because Rita Ora because Rita Ora is kind of around places, and she shows up places, and she sings and stuff. So you didn't expect that from her. She pulled it off really well, and I just enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. Even though I didn't actually. The first 50 Shades was like watching a trailer for the book, a really long trailer for the book, but it lacked the actual storytelling you want to see in a movie, which is sad. Um, Also, it lacks some of the humor it lacks some of the humor, which is a contrast to the actual events. It's not a hyper humorous book, but there is like humorous elements, and you didn't get that with That it was almost like they were trying to compensate, and it was just like, I don't know, they didn't ruin it. They just didn't do as good of a job as they could have, because for 50 Shades had the potential of the movie being better than the book, because the book wasn't really as fleshed out as it could have been. Uh, so the movie could have been better than the book, and I don't think that them doing like asides or anything like that, or any inside her head stuff, I would have dropped that as well. But at the same time, I would have tried to rework it into the to the to the book itself. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Take another sip of the hot toddy here. All right. So maybe it's just me. Okay, so let's move on to our next little bookie news story. So, okay, next news item is Wattpad has recently made a lot of changes, and this is our Wattpad roundup for February. So they made a lot of changes, some interesting changes to the way the site worked. When I first came to Wattpad, one of the things I've noticed is that it was very stagnant when it comes to finding books. It was really hard to find books. You'd search and you'd look around, and there was not a lot to find, and the discoverability level is really low. Whereas when you go to like an Amazon or something like that, or even like a Goodreads, you can find stories, you can sort of poke around onto other people's lists quickly and then pick up what they like. But I've never got that. What I noticed the most is the recommendations on the right hand side were always terrible. Um, Consistently so. Very old, stagnant books, books that weren't to the level of the 2004 books or the 2005 books that generally took off. Um, and there was just a lot of just unhappy things about the Wattpad setup. Just very unhappy. Um, and although I really enjoyed the Wattpad and the way the books, when I actually found books that I liked, and the only way I found books that I like was actually asking people what they were reading, and you can't ask the whole of Wattpad what they're reading. So again, problem. But the changes they have made is in the lists. They made it so that the lists are more prominent, so you can jump onto somebody else's list and then get in and then find books that you like, that you may hopefully like. But since you can't rate books, you don't really know if the list has a bunch of good books. So, I mean, it's still a problem there. And I think perhaps maybe rate the list instead of rate the books, um, which will still help people find books in a way. It will still help people find books, but they'll get an idea. That would be my recommendation for Wattpad. Maybe you don't have to rate the books, but maybe rate the lists that people make. So you would still encourage young creators who are maybe working on their craft, or older creators who are currently going through the craft, to still work on the books and then only get up ratings. And at the same time, you still have, you'll know what books, what are quality lists and what are not quality lists, what are not quality books. So you get a better idea, of what's going on, which is a recommendation there. They've also added the ability to read comic books, which I'm really excited about. I started Lucifer, which is I started Lucifer the black and white preview. Um, I really like that. They added gifts, which I'm not really happy about, because gifts can really go either way. I can go either way on gifts. A lot of times you, you see people doing the gift thing and it just doesn't work out. Sometimes it's funny, but sometimes it's not. Just I can go either way. It depends on the book. They've also added the ability to let's go. They've also added the ability to add more YouTube files to it. So I'm not sure how to do that, and also added more platforms. I believe they did more platforms as well in a recent release, uh, which is Windows platform. I believe they went to the Windows platform. Let me double check though. I just I hope the best for Wattpad because I really like what they're trying to get done over there. I like the idea of original stories. I like the communal nature of that because not all stories. Sometimes you develop ideas, and the first idea you have isn't so good, and the second idea you don't have is so good. But you read it so many times you don't realize that perhaps you need to flesh out this part, or perhaps you're telling too much information. It's good to have that kind of feedback, especially if you've never done it before. Um, so let's go ahead and do the next part here. Okay, so what's next on my bookshelf? So what's next on my bookshelf? I'm currently reading. I'm currently getting ready to reread the Alex Craft series. Um, I'm also reading. I'm rereading the Alex Craft series because the author only comes out with like a book a year, and sometimes a book every 2 years for Alex Craft. So I kind of forgot the Alex Craft series. So I don't remember what happened in it. And because I don't remember what happened in it, I kind of am screwed. So I have to reread it to remember what happened fully because I just don't know. Let's see. So Alex Craft Book 4 is coming out. I'm also reading Mass by M. Greenhill on Wattpad, and also All We Are by E. Ryan, also on Wattpad. What else am I reading? I am reading. I'm getting ready to read as well. I gave up on this Michelle Sagreng, I can't even say her name, series. But then I decided to come back to it, and I'm gonna go ahead and read Cast in Flames. Um, and that's a series that has like 10 or so, 12 to 10 books now. I think there's another one coming out to make it 12. So 11 books currently out, and then there's another one after that. And so I'm going to go ahead and read it again and go to 10 and 11, which are the two books that I missed in the series because I thought I was giving up, and then I was like, oh, I can't give it up. So went ahead and read it. Or I'm going to read it this week. So I have a lot of reading this week because I have, I probably am going to have to go back to jury duty, which I missed up on already. So back to jury duty. So I have picked out quite a bit of books to get through my jury duty. Okay, so let's get into the review portion of this. So I have quite a few books to review this week. I will never have this many books again, ever. It just sort of played out this way. Vu isn't on this week, and I figured I'd do all the books that Vu may not like or, may like, and I just couldn't wait to tell you guys about because I'm a jerk. So let's go ahead and get started on the book reviews. So this is my first book review for Me Before You. It's the actual book that it goes with the movie I talked about earlier. Me Before You is... This is going to be a spoiler-free review because... And it's going to be an unusually spoiler-free review. Mainly because... I really just don't want to mess up the way this book plays out because I feel like this is one of those books where I felt on the fence about the whole entire book, the whole entire time, and on the fence about the way it's going to end, on the fence the topic. It left me so twisted, just so twisted up, so on the fence, so thriller, so. It was an unconventional thriller, I would even say, to the point because you didn't know where you were. You were completely on the edge of your seat for the whole entire thing because you were falling in love with the whole entire idea, and you were pushing and you were pushing and you're hoping and you're hoping and you're wishing and wishing. You really didn't know which way it was going to fall. And I think that's very important for this book, so I don't want to ruin anything with you. I don't want to ruin anything. Uh, Me Before You originally came out on December 31st, 2012. So at the end of the year in 2012, I believe I read this like 2012, 2013 in my book club. And I didn't have any idea what the book was about. So I just opened it and started reading. I think you should do the same thing. This is the type of book where you should just open it and start reading. Don't look at anybody who does a spoiler review. Don't look at anybody who does anything else in depth. Just look at it and start reading it, because it just builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, and you become so invested in this book that years later, I was like, oh my God, I think this book cracked me open. And just, it was just beautiful. Completely beautiful. It was so unexpected. It's completely beautiful. Okay. So, would I read this? Yes. Would I buy this? Yes. Would I rent this? Yes. I'll recommend it to anybody? Would I give it as a gift? Yes, 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 yes. So, yes to everything. This book is for you. All right. Next book in the series is Magic Stars. Okay, Magic Stars is part of the Kate Daniels series. It came out recently. It came out very recently, and it's a novella, so it's kind of short. But what I love here is we have Derek and Julie, and they're rocking out together. And I would have to admit that I love Julie because she's like a book that hasn't been opened yet. Her powers haven't been really well established. What she can and cannot do hasn't been really established. Her fighting hasn't been super established. Her badassery hasn't been super established. And I kind of wish this book was more about her than Derek, because it's in Derek's person the whole entire way through. And I wanted more Julie, but Julie is, no, Julie, I think Julie's going to be unexpected. I love this book. And if you're a Kate Daniels fan, or you're a fan of just good books, this is the book for you. It's about 64 pages, and it's 64 pages of December 8th release date, pure awesome, 2015. Excellent. It was just unexpectedly just complete fangirl moment. I'm not gonna spoil this one out because it has a twist ending, and I don't want to spoil it, so we're not even going to do the discussion about this one. Probably next week when Boo's on, well, we might discuss the book, but not this week. Just read this book. Just read this book, because it is awesome. Read the Kate Daniels series, fool. It's awesome. All right, next one. Okay, so we have coming out. It came out release date October. Unrelenting Chris Long Knife series by Mike Shepard came out in October 27th, 2015. I really liked it, and I really like the Chris Long Knife series in the general, but I really like this one because it's a transitional book. We get a lot of things that are wrapped up in the Alwa sector. It's Chris Long Knife series is sci-fi. It's kind of it kind of has some of present science in it, but it's mostly science fantasy, or possibly future science. It doesn't, the science itself in it doesn't really link that well to current science in a way. Except for when it comes to artificial intelligence and the way artificial intelligence could possibly happen if we started jacking in our if we started jacking in our brain waves directly to a computer, that learned that the computer itself may learn how to read our brain waves, and then learn that sideways way of thinking of intelligence. So I would say in that sense that it's sort of that kind of science. Now, the Chris Long Knight series is one of those series that strong female lead, check. which I always like. I tend to read strong female lead books. I know there's other series that have strong male leads or male leads, and I always leave that fiction on the ground, that sci-fi fantasy on the ground, because there was so much of it before I started reading sci-fi, that I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and read chick. I'm gonna go ahead and read the chicks instead. If you like books like if you like books that are fantasy, and you tend to stick to fantasy that is a strong female lead, you're gonna like this. This is a really good series to start off with because it has a lot of the things that normal urban fantasy readers like, for strong female leads and things like that. And I really like that about the series. So I'm going to get in depth on this one, and we're going to spoil it. So there's spoilery. So prepare for spoilers. Sorry. Okay, so Chris is in the Owl sector. We have the return of the crazy chick and her crazy friend who impregnate her, which is really crazy when you think about it. It's like, why would you impregnate her? How does that like getting back at her by giving her a way to have a baby? And I kind of think that they just made that up so that she could have a baby when she returns to the human space, which I think the next book is going to be her returning to human space and then possibly fighting with the Itichi, which I actually like. I like the Itichi. The Itichi probably one of my favorite characters. Ron the Itichi is probably one of the favorite characters in the series. Although I didn't quite like that whole Ron the Itichi hookup with her because he kind of doesn't have a dick, so that doesn't make any sense. So I always thought that was really weird. I don't. Sometimes sometimes Mike Shepard, which is the author, has a habit of sexualizing certain things. For every book she had always some sort of sexual interest, even though you kind of knew that she was either going to end up with Tommy until he killed everyone off, or Jack. You sort of knew that, but every book she would have some sort of different interest where Tommy/Jack would look on and sort of look at what he could have and realize he couldn't have her, and that gets a bit repetitive, and that's one thing I don't like about the whole series as a whole. So that's the series as a whole comment. Okay, so she returns. She's in the Owl sector, and she has to figure out how to defeat all these base ships. And I think there's a total of 4 base ships. And I have to admit that the base ship thing is sort of getting a bit boring. Her just knocking away a base ship. So I kind of want her to return the human sector, have some sort of human sector intrigue, because I don't feel like she's in danger when it comes to those freaking base ships since the first base ship. I don't feel like the human space. I don't feel like they're in danger. Mind you, there's probably a bug-eyed monster, which is what she calls the people that she's finding, the aliens, bug-eyed mice monsters that actually look like them, which kind of says a lot about them. Um, Bug-eyed mice are monsters who always want to wipe out, all life that doesn't look like them, or excuse me, that isn't them genetically. All sentient life that doesn't look like them. Actually, all life when it really comes down to it. Um, what I think that is the most interesting thing about the Chris Longknife series is that Chris Longknife Unrelenting book, I should say, is that in this book, when she has a baby, it's not I'm going to kill it and then move on. I think they did a really good job of actually making it so that she has the baby, and then we move on. We don't dwell on the fact that she has a little person. And I like that. Her being pregnant and all that is just ancillary to the actual plot of going on, of beating whoever. We move on from that plot point. It's not an actual. It's weird to say that, in the series where the baby is technically marketed it. Her getting sick with the baby is technically marketed as the main portion of the series. It actually isn't the main portion of the series. This book is mainly a transitional book to get back to human space and wrap up the Oliver sector, which we probably will eventually be returning to 2 or 3 books from now. But I think she's going to go to the Itichi sector after she, does some Wardhaven intrigue type stuff. And that I'm actually looking forward to because I think they're going to bring back Vicky, which should also be interesting. Even though I have mixed feelings about Vicky, she drives me nuts as a character, but I also like Vicky as a character. I like her when she's Navy. I don't. I like Vicky when she's Navy. I don't like Vicky when she's just Vicky, which is a very nice thing to say. And Vicky is the Vicky. If you don't remember, if you haven't read the series yet, is a character who is like the polar opposite of Chris, Admiral Chris Longknife, but in a way, she is Chris Longknife. She's just a mirror of her because where Chris Longknife has, through her life, run away from power and everything else to do with it and wanted power through her own two hands, her own way. She's always wanted to go her own way. And she doesn't necessarily want to, later on in the book, which she goes to this discovery, she doesn't necessarily want to be a long knife in the sense that long knives have certain habits. And in a way, I think that Vicky's an important character in the series because it gives you a mirror look at if she was a socialite, if she had to be judged on what she looked like, things like that. I kind of wish that sexism was more dead in this series because the sexism and the misogyny kind of gets old in the series. And the one thing I loved about Space Adventure is they normally, they have a lot less of it. The one thing I always loved about Star Trek was that the future the future was dangerous, but it also had a betterness to it. And that's what I did like about it. So I'll go ahead and do a big long knife wrap up later. I'm going to go through each book and just do a quick little review of each book so you get the idea of it. This series is going to be a long series. I feel like there's about 10 more books to it that they could do. I don't think that because there's 45 base ships or something like 40 to 50 base ships, and there's multiple problems, there's a lot of meat on the hook in the Long Knife series. And I think as long as the author keeps getting paid, he'll keep doing Long Knife. So it's a mainstream book. So that's if you guys are going to keep reading, he'll keep writing. I think that's the way it's going to go. So let's go ahead and do the next one. Okay, so maybe before you read Chris Longknife series. Okay, let's go back to so the Chris Longknife series. This is a series review because there's so many books in this series. I was gonna do one individually for each book, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that because I'd have to edit it out, and I don't want to edit it out. It's a lot of editing. So the Chris Longknife series is about currently 13 books. We don't have at this time. We don't have a preview for the next book, so we don't have any book preview for it, which kind of makes me sad. If you for the Chris Longknife series, if you like series like Elizabeth the Moon's Trading Danger series, the Elizabeth Moon series, if you like that, if you like those type of space operas, you're gonna like Mike Shepard's Chris Longknife. Strong female lead. She has this huge, a lot of books in the series. She has this huge character arc, which is awesome. She goes, she goes from a 20 something fresh out of boot camp and college sort of thing to boot ensign to we get now a towards the end of the book stronger female who isn't so plugged into her family's legend. I normally don't like rich princesses, which basically she is. She's like a merchant princess, she's like her dad runs her dad runs Wardhaven, which is the home planet. Her grandpa is a huge war hero. She has such a huge shadow she has to walk into, and I think the first book is Mike Shepard introducing to us to, which is the Mutineer, the first book in the series, introducing us to how big her huge shadow she has to walk into. And if you actually look at the series as a whole, and you've actually read the whole series, you're going to realize how big that statement is and how far she has to go to get to the person we now know in book 13. Excuse me, is it book 13? Let's double check. Yes, double check. Uh, she goes a very, very long way. I like that. The book reminds me of Vada Wars. Also reminds me of I can't remember the book right off the top of my head. I should, but I don't, because Honor Harrington series, right? It kind of reminds me of the Honor Harrington series. Correct. Thank you, Twitter. It reminds me of the it reminds me a lot of the Honor Harrington series. I can't remember. I think the Honor Harrington and the Vada War series came out before this book, which is David Weber's Honor Harrington series came out in the 1990s, 1999, and then the Vada Wars is like the 90s or early 2000s as well. And when you go ahead and take a look at the Mutineer, chick from privilege, she's born to money, her father is super powerful on her home planet, but the actual world is crumbling. Humans have not too recently gone to space within the last 300 to 400 years, and through a lot of strife, they realized that the best thing to do would be actually to be one race and go out to the world, because there's another race called the Itichis, which they accidentally got into a war with because of piracy. And, they realized that, okay, we need to control space. We need to go out as a human being, and we need to be able to fight anybody we come across. And in the first book, he lays out this idea of the greatest mistake of humanity being the Itichi War. And the Itichi War happened because both sides let a disorganized charge into space. On top of a disorganized charge into space, they didn't control their problems internally as a people. They didn't think of themselves as a people. And at the beginning of the Mutineer, we have everything coming to an end. That everything that they finally got working somewhat effectively coming to an end, because Earth has the largest, Earth and her sister planets, which are the main planets, have the largest vote. And if you haven't read this book, read it. It's actually really worth the read, this entire series. There's a couple things I don't like about the series, such as the fact that the writing, the way that they write the dialogue is a little annoying. It's kind of like Goodly and things like that, and that gets a bit annoying after a while to read, because of the very particular way it's written. And I'm not really huge fans of the constantly going, long life legend and long knifing it up. I wish that would be, and it does get toned down a little bit more later. I wish it was toned down much sooner, because it stopped becoming an inside joke and it just started becoming annoying, and it does become annoying very quickly. That'd be my one big annoying thing, where I actually roll my eyes whenever that sort of, long knife kill everybody, long knife it up, you're not really a long knife this, long knife that. It's like, oh God. All right, so next book in the series, Deserter. So the deserter book in the series is Crystal Knife number 2, which is the deserter, because she has to leave her outpost because she recently mutineered. Because I'm giving away the last book, which is named Mutineer. So was it really a secret that she mutineered? Okay, but anyways, we won't go there. So in Crystal Knife by Mike Shepard, she mutineers. She on the ship, so basically no other captains really want her on the ship. So she's having trouble finding a job inside the military. She can't find a job, and she can't be military. So otherwise she's just another princess, playing army. She's just another military princess playing army. So The world has come to an end. She's become a princess, even though she doesn't want to be a princess. She just wants to be military. She just wants to be Navy, which is their space force. Um, and so she's searching. So she gets word that Tommy Lean has died. There's something happened with Tommy Lean, and she has to go and save him. And she goes off to Trantic, and she tries to save them. This is the only reason I like this deserter is Abby. Abby is her maid. She's the maid extraordinaire. She's one of my favorite characters because she starts off the series both mysterious, a mysterious hard luck person, strong character with kind of a softness to her. And I just was rooting for Abby, even though she was sort of, bad guyish. She's like one of those great characters, and I like that. And so this is kind of a Black Ops mission. It's a Black Ops mission, and I have mixed feelings on this book. I like this book because of certain characters, but I actually don't like the book that much. And I get that. I get that all the way through the series up until a certain point, which is when she goes to the Awa sector. But we're going to keep going. Okay, so here's Defiant is the next book after that. Defiant is the third book in the Chris Longknife series. It's by Mike Shepard. The Long Knife series is the Long Knife books are something that has to be looked at as a series. Think of it more like watching episodes, like Doctor Who, not Doctor Who. Let's think of another one, Sherlock. You know how Sherlock episodes are like an hour and 30 minutes or something like that. It's a bit like watching a movie that's really long, that's episodic in its nature, like watching Star Wars. This is a lot like watching Star Wars, and there's a lot of parts and bits and stuff, and it's a big story being told like a miniseries. And just because you don't like that particular book doesn't make the book bad or good. It's just that it wasn't something that hit with you, but you still love the characters, and that's kind of what Defiant is. Defiant is one of my least favorite books, not because of I'm going to spoil this for you. Not because of what you think it is. Defiant, she's back on Wardhaven, which is her home planet. She is indicted because they think that she stole money because of something that happened in the first book when she goes to help the people. They've helped the people in the who had the disaster planet. They think that she stole money from them. She didn't steal the money. It's a lie. It's one big lie. It's one big lie to cover the fact that Greenfeld is going to invade. What I don't like about this is that it was a little too over the top. And it's like, oh, she has to save her home planet from this ragtag fleet, and beat them with these little midget boats. They're called mosquito boats. What I didn't like about this one was that I'm not a huge fan of the Tommy Lane character. I actually like Penny, which is his wife, who gets married in this one, more than I like Tommy. Tommy was never a fun character to me. He was a little too over the top, he was too messy. And I think they try to make him out to be some sort of love interest to highlight the fact that men don't necessarily fall in love with her. And he was a character written to die. To express a point, to express 2 points, which is people around. I don't know if the author was going through this, but this is what I interpret it as. People around her tend to die. And, just like her brother, people around her tend to die. And people around her the men tend to not want to fall in love with her. And they end up hooking up with somebody else. And she never really gets that physical connection. And also to highlight the fact that, she didn't have a childhood because she's an alcoholic. And when she was a child, she was constantly doing that whole alcohol thing. And if you have something happen when you're, at that sort of 10-year-old age to 10 to 12-year-old age to, 19 or as, you can't really be a kid. because you have to manage that problem. And that's what she was doing that whole entire time. So she's never done normal things. She's never had a normal life. She doesn't understand childhood when it really comes down to it. She doesn't understand teen years because, she was managing a problem. She's managing her addiction. Okay, so I think what I really liked about the series was Luna, which was another starship captain. And I like Luna. I wish Luna would come back somewhere. I wish Luna would be her permanent driver, actually. I wish Luna would hook up with Drago, which comes in later. Just let it go. And let's see. This book ends on them saving Wardhaven, Tommy Lee dying with a huge cost, a very huge cost, not just his life, but also the lives of runabout captains and everybody. Everybody dies. It's one of those everybody dies book, and that's what Defiant is. But they pull it off with these midget boats taking down these huge ships, which is pretty amazing in itself, because I think the author did a really good job of making the fight seem vast, even though there was too much of a repetitive nature in it, and that whole song thing. It just got annoying. The song got annoying. And I've read this maybe 3 times, so it's really annoying at this point. I've read the series through at least 2 to 3 times. So, all right. So, next book in the series is Resolute. So, Resolute is her getting her first independent command. It's on a space. It's in space. It's on this little lonely planet named Chance. Last Chance. It's named that way because they don't want people to show the hell up. It's kind of like, it's a bit like a lonely town in Texas. Chance is a lot like a lonely town in Texas who just happens to be part of the United States, but still flies that Lone Star flag. Like it's still the Republic of Texas. They never got the message. And that's what Last Chance reminds me of. And she gets put onto this remote planet that has this space, the space structure, and she is supposed to guard it with pretty much nothing. And it's kind of like they put her out here, and it's a bit like, I feel like, okay, are they trying to kill this chick? Because when you're reading a Long Knife series, you get to the point where you're like, are they trying to kill this chick, or do they actually want her to live? and that's where I was with this. So I really enjoy this series because it's kind of like a breather between the large action. I would say that the Long Knife series is a bit like an emotional arc. You have these books where something, they have these books that something major happens, and then the next book something minor happens, a bunch of minor things happen, and then the next book is a major thing happening. And that's the way it feels. It kind of feels like, opposed to like other books that are like, they have a different breathing, they have a different breathe in, breathe out to them. So this is like a breathe out book. It's like, oh my gosh, everything happened. Now we have to emotionally deal with all those things happening. Now we have to put our lives together, and we have to move on. And that's what Resolute is about. She doesn't want to walk away from who she is and who she's becoming. She also realizes that it's the first time in the series where she's starting to realize that being a long knife isn't a good thing. It's not magical, mystical, powerful thing. It's actually a burden. It's a great burden. Now, there's 2 versions of the long knife. There's long knife. Well, there's 3 versions. There's long knife, the politician, long knife, the great grand politician. There's long knife, the great powerful person who runs an enterprise, and there's long knife, the great and powerful, war leader, which is the biggest long knife of them all. And these versions of long knife is something that she had an option to becoming. So she could have become the politician, or something like that. She could have become the great enterpriser, the great business person, or she could become the war leader. She decided to become the war leader because she didn't really like politics, and she didn't really like business that much. She's only so for it. Okay, so let me take a short little break here, and I'm going to pause it for just a second, and I'll be right back, okay? Okay, so let me find the pause button on here, and I'll go ahead and get into this. All right, let's find the pause button, and we'll go ahead and get into this. Okay, sorry about that short break. So we are back, and okay, or maybe not. All right, so let's go through the next one here. Okay, let's go ahead and fix the sound issue here. Sound issue. All right, or not. Okay. Okay, so let's do the next part. Um. Okay, so we're on the Resolute, and I'm going to go ahead and do you a favor, and I'm going to just go ahead and spoil this, so stop listening. In the earlier book, one book ahead, we meet the heir. In the first book we meet the heir to the Greenfeld Republic. In the second book, and then later on in that same book, we meet the heir, and he comes to it, and they sort of have this sort of mini romance. In the second book, they have kind of a mini romance as well, it, but it kind of goes tits up because he's an idiot. He's a bit of an idiot, and it goes a bit tits up, and she also steals his ship. And the third one, Greenfeld finally shows up, and they blow everything to hell. In the fourth book, we're now at the fourth book. Um, Greenfeld shows up again, and the heir apparent, who pretty much spent the whole of the second book denying that his family ever did any wrong whatsoever, which was kind of crazy. And I think that perhaps they did something mentally with the kid's mind to make him loyal. So, he doesn't kill his father like the other person killed their father. So that's what I'm thinking what happened, but we won't go there. Okay, so I think what makes this Resolute book something that I actually like. This is what the Resolute was when I actually started liking the series, because Penny was finally there, and the team. This is the first time we get to first really look at the team fully assembled and fully working. The way it should work, and this is where she changes, where she decides to become a different type of long knife. This is where she expresses that sort of thought to become a different kind of long knife, and this is actually where I started to like the series. Because I kept reading. I listened to the audiobooks. So I kept listening through because there was always bits and pieces to the books that I liked, but I did not necessarily love the whole series, love the book as a whole. This is when I sort of fell in love with the series itself, and this was the first book I really exuberantly loved. All right. And the main reason why is because she decided to be a different type of long knife, and I like that. You know, she understood her burden, and she's decided to be. She stopped buying into the long knife legend and stopped. And realized the burden of it, and that's what I really enjoyed about this book. So next one. Yes, we're having a super duper super review. This is one big fat review section. Sorry. No boo. So, I go through what I've actually read. So, Audacious is the Long Knife book number 5 by Mike Shepard. Audacious, as a review, I actually kind of liked it. And this is where the big Long Knife series makes a big turn, and you just are like, oh my god, I kind of like the series a lot. Um, You have Chris, and she's on the run because she's recently killed the Greenfield heir. She goes to New Aiden. Everybody's constantly trying to kill her. She's always had this sort of everybody's trying to kill her sort of thing going on. But after she accidentally sort of leads to the death of the Greenfield heir, it goes and kicks into fifth gear, and everybody's trying to kill her and some. So everybody's trying to kill her all the time. Now, she goes to a planet called New Eden, and New Eden, everybody is trying to kill her. Both factions are sort of kind of trying to kill her. Um, well, let me say, there's multiple factions on Eden, and the faction that is both Greenfeld and sort of like the faction that is um, New Eden establishment is kind of leading to her death because they're putting her into this holding pattern so she can't defend herself really. And there's a lot going on, and I really enjoy this book because it kind of lets you know that she's no longer a child anymore, and she's not going to put up with this crap anymore. And I like that. I like that she's no longer buying into the legend. She's no longer buying into her grandfather's bull. She's no longer buying into the whole long knives, long knife be long a knife and it up sort of things. She's in the crosshairs. She's fighting. She's kicking butt, and it's kind of like the birth of the legend of Chris Longknife, not the legend of the long, not the. It's no longer the legend of Ray Longknife's daughter at this point, it's granddaughter. It's now the legend of Chris Longknife, which I like because the legend of I didn't really care for the books that were the legend of Ray Longknife's daughter, granddaughter. I didn't enjoy those books. They were okay, but I didn't enjoy them as much as I enjoyed, when she woke up and started being herself. So Chris Longknife, um, she's assigned to the Wasp, which she picked up in from Last Chance. If you don't remember, it was one of the Greenfield ships that they make at their secret bases to be pirates, and so Chris Longknife she's been assigned to the Wasp. It's the best warship that money can buy, and it's now become a combination of both Greenfield technology and also Greenfield secret technology and also wargaming technology. So she has to bust up she ends up busting up a plan to kill the Peterwald family, which is the family that runs the Greenfield Federation, or whatever they call themselves. I think that this book really worked out really well. I enjoyed where it goes. I enjoyed that she's now wanting to lead herself instead of herself being led, and that's what happened in the whole series. And I think that's part of the reason why I had such a problem with the first book. But in the first book, she's pretty much a boot ensign. So there's no, you don't really lead as a boot ensign, which is why it's called mutineer, because she was mutineering. So, all right, just a second, and I'll go to the next book. Sorry about that. I had to cough. Oh, let me get another hot toddy. Hold on. I'm going to drink a hot toddy. Oh. All right. Hold on one second. I'm going to just take a pause. I'll drink myself a hot toddy. A little bit more. All right. Okay. So, back. Okay. So, so we're on Redoubtable. Redoubtable is Chris Longknife number 8. Redoubtable. Everything pretty much, I believe in Redoubtable, everything is going tits up. Again, she has precise orders. Well, actually, everything is not completely tits up. Everything is kind of normalized. She's rebuilt her relationships with the Peter Walds after she saves the main Peter Wald dude. She's pretty much trying to, unlike the Long Knife, unlike Ray Long Knife in Trouble, she's not trying to destroy everything. It's not even or. She's pretty much saying, "I'm willing to live with you, Peter Wald. Just get your crap together and leave me alone." And she's no longer having Peter Wald assassins, although Blowbys sort of still want to attack her. But she's no longer having these sessions with the Peter Wald attackers. They're trying to blow her up all the time. She's no longer having this. It's one of those books that, the Big Breath book was the last book, and then the Excel book would be this one. She's getting ready to fight the pirates, and she's getting ready to think about her big grand adventure. We have all that stuff going on in the series, and I kind of like this one. I think at first introduction of the Aitichi as well, but hold on. Let me look it up. Let me reread my notes from this book. Yeah, she's going to a planet that, she's going to a planet to help it out. And what she really wants to do is take all her ships and figure out what's actually killing the Aitichi, which we found out in another book. Nellie makes herself some babies, which is hilarious. And also keep in mind that earlier books, about 2 books back, Nellie became sentient, somewhat sentient. She was actually becoming, I think Nellie was actually becoming sentient before she got the piece of the 3 technology, the 3 being the races that created the gates that allow them to move through the system very quickly. But she I like this book. I don't know why I like it. And I'm sorry because I'm doing a quick review through it and I don't know why I like it. I just like it. It's not really a good review, but deal with it. Okay, so next book, Daring. So Daring is she's out there, she's on reconnaissance mission in the vast reaches of space. She has the Aitichi with her. She has Aitichi Gran. She's in the vast reaches of space. She's at Aitichi Gran. She's looking for the alien ship that keep blowing up the Aitichi because there's a big bad something out there and nobody knows what it is. And this is the beginning of the second half of the I'd say this is the third part of the whole entire series. So if these were big long books, you're on the second book right now. This is the big bad something and she's going out to find it, and I actually enjoy this. I enjoy this because for 2 reasons. She's leading her own brigade. She's confident in who she is, She realizes she's not like Ray. Ray is not her. Ray is one person, she's another. She's not an extension of Ray, she's an extension of herself, which is Ray Longknife, which is the original Longknife, who basically was a super war leader for the whole entire, human race against both the Aitichi and in the Unity Wars, which were to unite the whole of space. So, which was the Rim versus the home worlds. What I like the most about this is that I love the way, this is spoiler alert. I love the way he described the home base thing, the mother base, and how huge it is, because it really felt huge. It felt like a huge freaking, because we went from originally her on a mosquito boat to her on the Wasp, which isn't that huge of a ship, to her, we I think the author did a really good job of understanding the size and scope. So when you finally size and scope of each war wagon, you understand you understand the difference between the size and scope. And so when we finally get to the base ships feel huge. They feel huge. They feel dangerous. They feel scary. They have tons of lasers and stuff. You're like, oh my god. Look at all those lasers, and they look like moving death machines, which they pretty much are. That's what they do. They go from place to place and they kill folk. So they kill life, and so I like that. I think it really worked out. Okay, and Furious, she finally makes it home, which is not good because everybody in the universe hates her. They hate her because she blew up the whole entire ship. She blew up the mothership, and everybody thinks it's a war crime. But, because keep in mind, she didn't go looking for the fight. She didn't, the fight didn't come looking for her. She, in a sense, went looking for the fight. And then instead of coming home when she found the fight, she decided to save the avian race, or the owl ones, which we find out later. And when she saved, she attempted to save the avian race. I kind of like that. And because that, she comes back to, she comes in Fury, she comes back to human space, and she's pretty much a war criminal, because she used a weapon of mass destruction against non-combatants, even though technically they were sort of driving around a warship killing everybody in space. But just saying, just killing all the life in space. So I agree to disagree to agree to disagree on this one. Okay, so finally gets all of her bits and pieces together. She gets everything going, and then she's now ready to start, going back into space, killing everything. Well, not killing everything, but finding out what happened. What happened after those rockets shot off towards the moon base and blowed everything up? What happened? What happens next? So we find that out. She's also put on trial, and this is basically a breathe book, so it's trying to wrap up everything, these huge events that happened in the last book, and this one's wrapping up this one. So I enjoyed it. Okay, so let's go. Okay, so let's see. We are now on. Okay, we are now on Defender. Okay, so Defender, it's her going back into space. She's going back to see what happened with the big old mothership. She's going back to see if she destroyed it, because we're not totally sure that she destroyed it. She could have only destroyed partial of it, even though she could have only destroyed partial bits of it. So we don't know what's happened. We're going to go back into space, see what happened, and at the end of the last book, leading into this book, which is okay, I'm having a computer issue here. We're gonna get there. We're getting there. We're getting there. We're getting there. We're gonna get there. I need to do a second computer when I do this. Okay, which is Defender. We go to the last moment of Furious and the first moment of Defender, where she realizes, oh my God, this is my grandma. So she ran into this. They've been hinting the fact that okay, I might be off on this. Let me reread this for a second. Let me reread my notes, and I'm gonna restart this one. So edit this out when I'm there later. This is live, so this is the first time I've done this live. So okay, so she's back in the good braces of the brass. They promoted them. They found out, that she found her grandmother. She's now Admiral Longknife and Defender, and she's there to defend the Owl system from harm, which is the wrap up from her finding out that her grandma is in the last system, which was the last book. Let's get that out there. So, I'm gonna go ahead and just say that this book is sort of building up the Owl system, and she has to do all these tasks while at the same time managing the fact that, when she first got to the colony, it's very small, it's very, very small, and it doesn't have any way to support the infrastructure that she is, and that her grandfather, which is King Ray Longknife, wants her to make it look like that human civilization has always been on that, that small little ball, and it's growing up to defend itself against the invaders, which are the bug-eyed monsters, which they aren't really bug-eyed, they look like humans, social commentary. I like her as I like her in the Owl system. I like the series when it goes to the Owl system. I like all that stuff. All right, so Tenacious. So we're on Tenacious now. So Long Knife Tenacious is her, she finally got to marry Jack. She's newlywed. She's in the whole vice admiral. She's a vice admiral, vice, and she's vice admiral. She's viceroy. She's defending her home against the invaders. She's got all her stuff together. This is really one of those just breathe type books. She has a couple of dissidents. She deals with the dissidents. She finds an alien race, another alien race. So aliens on top of aliens on top of aliens now on top of aliens. So we are finally getting humans out there actually doing the things, finding all these races. She finds out a lot of different things, such as, spoiler alert, that this bug-eyed alien race is running around the whole entire, the whole entire galaxy, our galaxy, because this is just our galaxy. We don't know if they're running around our space and human space, and they're running around opposite human space, killing any sentient that they find. And they have this hall of bones, or this area where they're putting their hall of horrors, which they call their holiest of holiest, is their war crimes. And they're putting all their war crimes, all their crimes against sentience into one simple room where they have, over 400 different species that were, some of them sentient, some of them possibly just on the way to sentience, completely, wiped out. And they put them in this room, and this is her saying to the human race, look, we're not going to get out of this by putting our nose in the sand like an ostrich, which they now have as allies. You're going to have to fight. And she sends all this information home so people get the idea that this isn't going away. You're going to have to fight. All right. And then I've already reviewed it, Relentless, for you, but this is the whole, what I was trying to do with this little quick review of all the books in the series is to, catch you up if you can't remember what happens in that book or what happens in this series. I was trying to give you a way to remember, so when the next book comes in, you'll have an idea of what's going on, and you'll know, because boy, this is one of those long series, and it's like, I always want to know what people feel about the series, because sometimes you can't just, it's just not certain books aren't just about a book. Sometimes it's about a scope of a series trying to tell you a whole story, like any really good TV show series like Breaking Bad or something like this is telling you a whole story, the ins and out of a whole story. Now, I haven't read Mike Shepard's other books, which talk about Ray Longknife and all the other stuff, because I don't like Ray Longknife. I've never liked him, and I think the reason why I don't like him is because I came into this series, this Chris Longknife series, which I think is the more popular series of the two. But you can get this. It's on paperback. There's audiobooks. I highly recommend this series. It's something to actually It's something to actually really get into reading because space operas with female leads being so prominent, I have trouble finding to this day, and I always enjoy reading them. So thank you so much for showing up to the show today. I realize that I have no idea of the length currently because I'm not looking at a clock like I should have been. Um, we are happy to have you. Thank you so much for voting last time. You voted for our show, and I think that's awesome. I was like, oh my God, we got thumbs up. We get thumbs up now. That's cool. We next week we're gonna read Tight because Vu's gonna be here, and we're reading Tight. Finally gonna read and Shutter Girl by CD Rios, Shutter Girl. So those are the two things that we're reading next week. Thank you so much for coming. Vote for us. Do you hit the thumbs up button? Subscribe. You want to subscribe so you can get more episodes. We're here. We come out with a new episode hopefully every Sunday because there's always a good book to be had, and I'll try not to fit so many books into one show again because that was a lot. But thank you so much for showing your support and everything. Thank you so much. Take care. Good night. And get your alcohol, get your wine, get your hot toddy, get a nice book, and have a wonderful read.